Hello and welcome to the MA STEM course in Quantitative Methods. This is going to introduce you to the R programming environment. So first of all, a little bit about what we're going to be covering on the course. Well, today we're going to be looking at R, and in particular a set of R instructions called the tidyverse. We're going to be looking at loading and manipulating data and getting you ready to start looking at the PISA dataset, which is a massive international dataset that you're going to be using a lot in this course. Next week, you're going to be looking at graphing and something called ggplot, which makes, I suppose, industry standard graphs. And then in the following weeks, you're going to be looking at different statistical models and then looking at how to present the results. And as I said, we're focusing mostly on the PISA dataset. We're talking here about a dataset with about 650,000 entries, and you're going to be trying to explore this dataset internationally and trying to replicate some of the STEM academic research that you may have been reading. To accompany this course, we've got a textbook. The textbook is all online. It's very much a work in progress, so things are going to be changing. And if you are using this textbook, just make sure you keep refreshing the page every time you load it. And you've got sections in here on all the things that we're covering, including the statistical models with the exemplar code. You'll see with the textbook that you've got the examples here, but you've also got questions with the answers to go along with them. So you can test yourself, you can read ahead, you can go back and recover things that maybe you will have missed and so on. And the question really is, why are we looking at R and not something else? Many of you will have obviously used something like Excel. Some of you will have used something called SPSS. We're using R because it's free. It's an incredibly powerful stats platform. It's a programming language really written around statistics. So if you want to do something statistical, R will most likely have a library or a package to help you do that. It's widely used in academia and industry, so we can start to replicate some of the things that you see because they may well have originally been written in R. It leads to something called reproducible code. So if you do something in R, you can share your code and then somebody can reproduce what you've done rather than just giving them the final answers. So we're trying to look here at the idea that we don't just publish the results, we publish actually the method to get to the results so somebody can then rerun them and check them. There's a whole publishing ecosystem, so you'll see with ggplot that we're making incredible graphs which you could then go put into publications, but you can actually write textbooks, you can write papers, you can write presentations, you can write websites, all in R, and in fact the textbook we're using was written in R. And it's got something called the tidyverse, and the tidyverse we're going to be really leaning on in this first session, Introduction for R, because it's a really simple way of starting to manipulate data in a way that other people can look at and hopefully understand, and I suppose more importantly you can look at it later in the course and you can go back and see what you've written and hopefully understand it. And this here is an example of something in the tidyverse. And I'm going to show you some examples of the tidyverse in a moment, but I suppose the question is why you look at the tidyverse. Well, the tidyverse is used by the BBC, it's used by Financial Times amongst many others. So graphs that you might see appearing on Twitter or on websites, these graphs were made largely in the tidyverse in something called ggplot. Tidyverse is very easy to read, hugely powerful, and it's got this kind of standardized model to dealing with data. And very often on courses like this, we focus very much on the modelling. So you spend a lot of time putting together your statistical model, but actually most of the work when you're looking at analysis will probably happen with the import tidy transform and kind of playing around with that method. Some people reckon it's about 80% of your time is spent trying to get data into a format which will then neatly slot into your model. So that's why we're focusing on the tidyverse, that's why we're focusing on R, and I should also say, if you are, one of the other things is it's free, and if you were looking to do more work around statistics in the future, you can always use R, it's always going to be free. Well, something like SPSS might involve you having to spend a bit of money, and obviously Excel does as well. So that's the end of the quick introduction. In the next bit, we're going to be looking at how to start coding. Thank you.